All right, welcome to technique number 4. We're going to be doing technique number 2, I guess, as well, or option number 2, technique, whatever. This is just what way we do it. So number 4, we already have, well, both of them, we have them mapped out exactly the same. So we drew out where our cleats are going to go. Obviously, you can read cleat. So when we put in there cleat, that just means we're just going to be using this cleat wood in there all by itself. So no panels, no nothing. The panels themselves are going to screw to this area, right? So we're going to have our monitor, just a cleat that's going to be the actual monitor mount piece is against that, and it'll screw to this cleat here. The control panel will just drop on top of this cleat and screw on either side down to this cleat from below or from up top, however you decide to do it. We usually just do it for top for easy use for customers. And then what we're going to do with this style, as you can see here that I had mentioned in technique or option number 1 and 3, is we did an angle across the front here. We're just going to do a 90 right in the pocket here so that the profile keeps the shape from the outside, and then this is just a nice kind of butt all the way up inside there, and it's just a different look. This is the way they used to do it back in the day. The other technique that we did there to show you that is to follow the outside of your profile there. That makes it a little bit nicer sometimes too. So it's a stylized thing that you like either one of these or the other. You can also notice that what we've done in here is when we put the panels in, they're going to be a little bit away from the edge here. All right, so what's going to happen there is you're going to have a little inset. All right, it's going to be about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch inset here. So you can actually just get a full edge across here that we do the T-mold in. So yeah, all in all, this is just our layout. They look exactly the same for the drawing wise. We've measured it out. And we're going to start routering this bad boy out here. So we will show that to you. Before we go too far on here and actually router this out though, I wanted to show you, made a quick correction. So we're going to make it, all these look the same so that you guys are looking at the same thing regardless of the style or technique style that we're doing. This one here, we're not cutting the back here because we're leaving that open for the door. But we do have the back panel here, and we do have a bottom back panel there. So we're just going to router out a small section on the bottom and a medium-sized section out on the top. So we can give her. And now you know why we're doing that. So that's all done. Yeah, obviously we got some round edges. So we're going to take the chisel and we're just going to chisel out our 90 degree on this. Once you see how it's done, it's pretty simple. Just take your time. Right, so you can see that it didn't take much, just 2 little hits or whatever. Then you can grab it by your hand and you can kind of play with it a little bit more, chip it out. Just be really gentle with it, especially it being plywood. MDF is a little more forgiving. It's a little easier to push through. Plywood will just chip if you have, especially if you have a little bit of a lower grade. As you can see when we router this out, it's got like little furred edges and stuff around. This is like a brand new router bit, but it'll still do that because it's like almost like a veneer on top of the plywood here. But most plywoods will have that if they have finished one side or both. Just make sure your chisel's sharp and you should be good to go. All the burrs and stuff on the edges here can all just be sanded off with either a sandpaper with a sanding block or an orbital sander. If you got an orbital sander from the other stuff that we've been doing, it's pretty simple. All right, so we're going to take this cleat piece off for our guide, and we're going to set up the other ones like we did on the other techniques and measure them out. We're still doing them at a 2 3/16 from the outside line here, so you can see how we're leaving this lip on the outside. What that's going to do is just give like a kind of a better finished edge. It looks a lot more professional, and it's not really any extra step. It's just basically where we're putting it. So it's a different technique / style. We're doing it the same way as number 3. All right, moving on to the next one. So this is our second little spin over trip here on the top. We're just going above where the marquee will be on the top of the arcade. As you can see, we're putting in minimal amount of nails as possible. Depending on your workpiece, you'll get things like this where you'll see a little nick on the inside from your nails when we pull this off. We sand these all and fill them before we finish off the actual machine. If you do any of these nail holes on the outside, you'll have to do the same, obviously. But yeah, try to keep them as minimal as possible. All right, so we're gonna move this workpiece over to the side here, just so it's easier for him to pull the router his direction. Remember to go like counterclockwise with the router because the bit's going clockwise, so it will pull itself in the direction it wants to go. Do not push the router against its rotation, otherwise it'll kind of bounce all over the place. You'll get vibration and it'll just mess up your workpiece. So here we go. So going around the bottom here, I know you noticed on the other one that we were doing, we always like to inset this piece here for our base so that we can set up a way of putting the feet that we have in. So we have a video on how to put on the feet for the base there. We're going to continue that style because that's what we do. So you can choose how to do it however you want here, but basically in the end, you're either going to go on the bottom edge and make it flat, square, flush, or you're going to inset it somehow to get to a height where you want to use either a 2x4 or another birch block or double up 2 blocks, that type of thing. It's up to you on the height you want to make there, whatever you're doing for your feet. So make sure you accommodate for that. And again, we're only just using like 2 nails here. You want to use the least amount of nails as possible so that you're not filling all your stuff all the time. All right. So he's doing a quick measure to make sure that he's getting in the right spot there. And you'll see that he's on like a small angle there, and he's going to drop the router in slowly and pull it towards him. So you want to go counterclockwise while pushing or pulling on the palm router. You don't want to push forward on it and go clockwise because that's the same direction as the bit, and it'll give you some jump back and jitter. You don't want that. All right, here we go. There we go, and you can see where he kind of started, quarter to halfway through this line for the one we're doing on the back there. Then when we join that up, obviously they'll intersect, and it'll look like this bad boy. All right, so we're moving up to the front of the little profile that we got going on here, as you can see, and we'll get set up for that. We've flipped our piece around. We're going up the front here. We got it all measured out, so we're gonna keep on going. As this one here is, you're gonna see we're going straight up to this 90-degree angle here instead of following the angle of the profile in the front there. As I always say, minimal nails. Don't just hammer them in through here, because you're just gonna create a bunch of work for yourself later. I know it is on the inside of the machine, so if you don't care, I don't care. I can't see it from my house, so it's not a big deal for me, but the ones that we see and what we do here, we obviously don't want to create that work for ourselves. It just looks kind of choppy and gross, but yeah, here we go. Angle your up palm rider in and make it happen. Okay, I'm just going to make mention, just in case you notice or you're noticing and wondering why. Two things. One is we are going right off the edge here, okay? So our piece, our bottom, or our front panel, sorry, is going to be flush with the bottom here. So we want to make sure that we go all the way through. We did that on the other side here too, so we're creating kind of an H pattern there. Secondly is you might see him kind of push back and forth and back and forth. Sometimes things catch. Sometimes you'll also notice that we haven't used the vacuum. We'll use it in between these cuts as we go off camera to do that. It's not spitting this crazy dust absolutely everywhere like the MDF. The MDF, you want to wear a mask and you want to make sure that you have that vacuum going pretty much at all times, because that dust is horrible and it's also not the best for you. This stuff here just falls directly, big particles. It's not going to get into your lungs too much. You can always wear a mask, depending on what you're actually using. If it has like a lacquer finish or something on the top and it's kind of got some paint or whatever on it, you might want to wear that mask and use the vacuum as well. But this stuff isn't too bad. All right, so this actually, pretty simple. It's a shortcut. It's all good. The thing you want to be aware of when you're doing something like this is maybe, depending on how you feel, you might want to come from this side here, drop it in as close to that line as possible, and then come backwards here. That would mean that you might have to put the cleat or your guide on the opposite side, just because you have to go in that clockwise counter motion. The way we're going is here, so you just got to be very, very careful not to go past, obviously, that line. We're only going to go in about a quarter to halfway, no more than that, because we're doing that square. And then we're probably only going to come, a quarter to half inch away from that, and then we'll chisel all that out by hand there. It's a little bit more work, but you're only going to have to do it there and in here as well. So yeah, get her done. Okay, so see, as I said, if there's a little lip on this side of it, which he didn't do, but you might end up doing, pushing it a little too far, that's not a big deal. Like I said, it's on the inside of the machine. You can see the different layers there where he kind of went through, just making sure to be careful there. That's all good and dandy. And then there's the little corner that we're going to have to chisel out. So he'll get that as we go, because we want to be methodical. You can wait till you're all done and then go in and do this after, but just in case the chisel's not doing the trick and you got to go back in, you might want to leave your guideline cleat that's here in and do this while you're there, just in case you have to go a little further. There's no point in remeasuring and setting that up again, and then you're also putting more holes on your profile and stuff as well. So do it as you go. Don't rush through the project. All right, and he also just went over a few things there because it had a little lip in there. That will create a bubble or a gap or an airspace when we put our panels in there for glue. So you want to make sure that it's as flush as possible. If you screw up something in here and you put hole or it's too high, if it's too high, you'll really notice. If you have a hole, you could just fill it with glue or wood filler. Bondo even, and then sand it off and that type of a thing, as long as you have some nice flat surface area. And pockets aren't a good idea to have on here. All right, so we're moving forward and we're just going to cut the cleats out for the front there, and we'll show you it's a little bit more of the same. So this is our front, measured out. That's it, just the 2 nails. Same rocking motion for your palm sander and go in. So there you go, stayed within the lines, but like I told you before, you get that little bit extra that you got to chisel out, but it's only straight lines, so it's not a big deal. All right, so we'll probably clean up a couple more of those edges before we obviously put our panels in, but we're moving on to our monitor and control panel cleats. Only a couple more to go. We're gonna try to make this one quick and easy, but you can see how when I've been showing you on the video, you probably noticed that this one says cleat and this one says cleat. All right, so these ones are just gonna have cleats like that put into them, as I explained earlier, and we actually mount things to them so that they're removable. So that's why it's labeled like that. You'll see later in the process when we mount our control panel and our monitor, after we show you the completed cabinet, you'll kind of get the gist of why that is the way it is. All right, so we're nailing this in. So here doesn't matter to us too much. We'll clean all that up and make it all special. But we'll put our panels in, and then the cleats go in afterwards. So any gaps that may or may not be there, we'll fill it out or not fill it out. Once you see how we put it all together, that part there doesn't matter to be butted right up against there for any specific reason. You just want to have as much cleat as possible for surface area. That would really be the only reason why, but there's no actual panels going into this cleat and this one that we're doing next here. All right, so he's just getting that little corner down. Right, so you can see the lines there, see how it stops right there and then it goes to the other one. You can join this all the way through if you want to, if it's easier for you. We're doing it this way because that's just the way we program them on the CNC and we make them this way. So it just makes sense for us to do it this way. It really has no bearing on anything other than that. So feel free to do that however you want. Time to monitor away here. I know I keep saying these things and they probably have no context to you at the moment, but basically here we've got where our monitor is going to be. Obviously you can see that, so I keep referring it to that, but you'll see how it all comes together. Voila. So you'll see this one here, it is going to end right here, and then we've got quite a gap here for our next cleat that's going to go, where we're going to be mounting our speakers on the front underneath the marquee. The reason being for that is that we have a piece panel for the monitor that's the same thickness, same type of wood as this, obviously. And when we put it in, you want to be able to push it up and then drop it down, or be able to remove it. So we need that gap there for that removal. All right. Little mandling of the chisel here. You can see most of the time here, you don't even really need a hammer. We're not going that deep for one. If your chisel's sharp enough, you should be able to do this no matter what material you're using, unless you're into some serious hardwood. And it should probably still do it then too. It allows you to have a little bit extra control. You start hitting with the hammer, you could go too deep. It's not going to ruin your piece that much, but then you just got to fill it with more stuff. All right, so we'll chisel that one out after. We'll line this bad boy up here and we'll do this last one. So in the beginning of Technique 3, we mismeasured our guide for our router, and you can see that we were off our line. We just committed to it just because why the heck not, I guess. In the end, you might have this same problem. Now, if you go in the direction that we went, then it's not going to be a big deal. If you go the other direction and you've ripped off your edge on this side, you can do the same thing that we're going to do for this. To fix it, it just might not hold as well, and you might have to start over. But for this one here, it's going to be on the inside of the cabinet. Nobody's going to see it, and it's not going to wreck the strength of the cabinet by the time we're done. So we're going to show you what we do to fix this. I wouldn't get super upset about it if you do it. We were debating whether we're going to put this on here or not, but since you might end up having the same problems as us with this, you know, even though we're professionals, we do make mistakes, things happen. We're rushing through this, trying to get it all done with the camera crew, and then you make one quick little mistake and you got to pay the price. So this is how we fix this and make it happen. All right, so we're measured out now properly. So basically we're just going to router this out the way we always would have, and we're going to go up to there and just leave this routered gap at the bottom here instead, or on the inside bottom. So you just go ahead with it and do it the way you normally would, or the way we showed you. Okay, so the only thing with this is when you put your piece in here now, like this, right, you're gonna have a gap at the bottom underneath there. Now you can do one of two things. You can just glue this in and be done with it and not care about the aesthetics, or you can put a sliver in there. So this is a scrap piece of wood that we have left over from one of the profiles. So what we'll do is we'll cut a little piece out there, we'll make a little shim or sliver for it, and we will put it and glue it in there, clamp it all down and make it all nice and party, and you won't even know that something was wonky with it, except for the grain, I guess, but it's going to be on the inside, so you won't see that. As we go along with that and we fit that in there, we will show you the next steps. We're on the last run here. This is for that speaker panel that I was mentioning. Obviously we got two squared up edges there, so this is going to have the most chiseling that we've done. All right, so you saw it kind of went really slow in the beginning here. That's because you don't want to obviously go past this line. You want to keep that as best as you can. Here wouldn't matter as much. You just might see it from the outside of the cabinet later on down the road if you don't fill it or do whatever with it. So we're going to chisel this out all nice. Now, remember, you want to do all these things that we're doing right now before you measure out your panel pieces, because you want your panel pieces to be as snug as possible in this situation. So when you do the piece that he's working on right now, we'll measure that out to as close to its size as possible. And when you put your panel in there, you want it to be snug to give it that structural integrity, right? Because you're trying to cover your surface area and then also have it snug. This dado itself is what gives this cabinet all its strength. You know, it's basically cradling your panel piece in 3 different directions, and then we also throw cleat wood in there as well to shore it all up, and then you clamp it and do all the fun stuff. This thing's almost indestructible when it's all said and done. All right, so we're not moving on to the other piece here. Obviously, we did a little bit of a boo-boo here on the top. You can go to our troubleshooting at the bottom of this lesson section, and we'll show you how we fixed this. So if you run into this problem, don't fret. Okay, so we're getting into this whole, we're gonna put together our technique number 4. We've routed out all our parts. We've fixed our little top there. You can see how we did that in our troubleshooting and cabinet repair. We're doing any sort of mess ups and things like that and putting that all in there. So sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't. I will be doing some of them on purpose at request to see what people are looking to get to figure out how to fix. So we'll try to do that. With that being all said and done, we've got all our pieces cut here. Okay, so you're going to want to get to this point where you know what size all your pieces are for your profile. So like say like this here, it's obvious. It is a speaker hole, or speakers for the speaker holes. And we're going to be putting it in here, right? So we checked the data, we dry fit, we went through this whole setup already, okay? So everything fits, everything's cut to size the way we want it. So we're going to blast this through so that you can see how it goes basically in real time. With all that done as well, we've beveled all of our edges, mitered them to whatever you need them to be or what we need them to be. I think on this one here, the only thing we need on this is our top and our back where they meet, that type of thing. That's going to have where our angle is. I'll zoom in and show you all that stuff when we're doing it. Obviously, we've T-molded our back top here. Plywood is a nightmare to T-mold. Sometimes you can use the T-mold bit, and when you put it all together, or when you go to put T-mold in it, it won't spread apart for your T-mold, so it makes it really hard to hammer it in. You might have to adjust your bit on your T-mold trim to account for that by going through it once and then maybe going like a millimeter or two more higher to take a little extra off. We've got our cleats cut out here, okay, so we have them all measured out and ready to go. This looks like a lot of cleats. It is, because we're doing both sides. We're doing technique number 2 and technique number 4 on this same build. So we're going to show you this technique number 4 first. These are the tools that we're using. So we've got our nailer, we've got our chisel, our silent rubber hammer, we've got air, wood glue, pencil, and obviously our plans and a few nails kind of kicking around for that. Measuring tape just in case we got to cut something on the fly, but we should be pretty good. This is going to move quickly. Also, if you've seen in all the other techniques that we're doing, all of them will have the same philosophy applied for clamping and or weights. So you can use, you know, like bench weights, lifting weights, dumbbells, that type of thing, sandbags, 5-gallon pails with water with a lid or something on it for some major weight, whatever you can think of that'll give you lots of weight. Or you can use clamps. So we are going to be using clamps on this. I showed you the other one with the weights and the sandbags and stuff on the last one, but since we're in the shop and we have clamps, we are going to use them. So we're going to move forward here and get this puppy rolling. We're ready to get gluing and nailing and doing all that fun stuff. We've got all our pieces, as you can see, they're all labeled for us. We can see that, maybe you can't see it on camera. And we have them all laid out nicely. We've got our cleat pieces mapped out where they want to go. We're going to do this on, like, everything on the fly, right on the go. You're going to see it in real time. He's just going to start gluing stuff and hammering things in, and we're going to go from there. So we're going to start at the bottom and then work our way around the front. So it'll be back bottom here, the way we have it designed. We like doing it this way. There's a spot here where we didn't show you this because we didn't end up having too much time, but on the back piece here that he's going to be installing first, you can put a dado in there and on your front panel piece as well for your base to sit into. We don't need to do it on this size of a cabinet. We will show you on some of our other machines though that we have on, we just kind of do a fast forward through one of our other builds here with the CNC when we can have all those pieces done. But sometimes right here where that dado lines up to that back piece that's there, we can put another dado in there as well, so that basically the base of this is sandwiched right in there. We'll do it all with cleats, and then the feet there, it'll be strong enough for that. We're not concerned about that at this time, but if you're building a really big cabinet, you might want to do that. All right, so he's also got this cleat that comes all the way up here. So this one here is going to stop the door when it gets put in. So basically, what's going to happen is this one goes all the way through to give you tons and tons of strength. All right, so here he's gluing both sides of the base. You have to account, obviously, for, you know, all your dado cuts and stuff. Hopefully they'll all be the right depth and the same depth so that your pieces, when they're all cut, will be nice and flush, like this is at the top there. Okay, so what he's gonna do here is he's gonna line that up and then put a pin in the side on the outside, as well as pin in the cleat that's there. Any excess glue like this on the inside is not a big deal. It's easy to sand off. After you get rid of it, make it nice and thin, sand her down. So as you can see, it doesn't need a ton of pins to go in there. It's more just to hold it till the glue dries. So everything will be very, very solid when this all dries out. Don't get too crazy with the glue, especially if you're in a humid location. It'll probably just ooze right out of here. It is harder to clean up when it squishes out all over the place, especially if you're using clamps. You're going to want to leave it alone. You can wipe some of the excess off of here when that actually happens, but in these dados, if it starts squeezing out of the dados, you're definitely using too much glue. It shouldn't do that, but it should spread within the whole thing there so that you're getting almost 3 different sides of coverage on it. And then when he gets this in here, he'll make sure that he squares up the bottom, and he'll do a pin at the top so that it doesn't move while drying here. So we'll do a quick measure here on the other side. Can't see, but he's making sure that it'll be the exact same distance there. Because when we do our technique number 2, we are just putting wood to wood here. There'll be no dados, nothing to line it up. So, and it might have a chance to dry before we get there. So I'd like to, well, we'd always like to make sure that it's square. If you do 2 panels like this, you don't necessarily have to pin it like we're doing if you're doing this on both sides, because the channels that you make for these dados should line it up perfectly. We're just doing it right now so that it won't sway all over the place on us right now. If you pin it on yours, what it might end up doing is stopping you from adjusting it later once you get that top piece on. So you want to have that adjusted. I just want to make the clarification in there, the reason why we do that, right? So these are the fun little 90-degree square panels that we put in the front here. On the other designs that we did, we just went with the profile, so we had some 45-degree angles here to play with. So it depends on the look that you like here. This one is more, you know, retro, straight up. This is the way it used to be. Nice, square, easy for everybody to build it, put it together, and, you know, obviously, you know, the profile just gave it that look. If you want to give it a little extra zing, you can do the other style that we did there. Yeah, it just comes down to personal preference. All right, so he's pinning it from behind here, just so we can make sure that it stays square as we did down at the bottom. It doesn't need a ton for support here. Like I said, the glue will hold it, and all the angles that they're all going to be connected together, it's going to help it for sure. All right, so here he's just being finicky and lining it up and all that fun stuff. Sometimes you might find that, you know, you're having an issue. It doesn't necessarily mean that your piece isn't cut square or whatever. You have to look for things down in your dado possibly. You might have dropped a shaving in there. You might have done something to make that kind of wonky, but just make sure to check everything out. Don't just start beating it with a hammer. It should just fit in nicely. So obviously if it's not, then you're running into some sort of situation that you might want to check other places, like down here in that dado. So this is where the interesting thing comes in, where I've made mention of it a few times before, and you can just see these cleats that are just kind of sitting there bare. You can also take note of that, where he's using in like probably a 25 to 30 degree angle, putting the nails into the wood, because it is a softer wood, being plywood. It might just go all the way through the other side, so you want to make sure that you use an angle, or you can use a smaller, shorter nail. We just use the same because it takes a real long time to just swap it out and do all that fun stuff. We want to keep going. So setting it up to do that will definitely be the way to be. So right here, we aren't putting any panels in here with glue or anything for permanent like a permanent setting. There will be just like a monitor like against here, and then your control panel will be down here. We'll show you in the control panel and video setup there how that all works. All right. Moving on to the speaker panel. Yeah, make sure you give it a good press like he has here. You want to make sure that that glue kind of thins out and gives an even spread inside there. If you want to use your finger in there, you can. You'll just hopefully wash that off before you get it all over your workpiece, right? So you'll eventually get a nice flow for this and see how when it starts working for you. You just kind of get into the groove. All right, so tight spots like this are a little bit wonky, but you just have to do your best in knowing that and your trust that the glue will hold. In here, what you can do, and what we've done in the past, is take a clamp and put it here on that tip part, because you won't be able to get the nailer in from this direction, okay? As you saw before, we did a little fix in there, that little chunk that we put in there. Now that's going to hold all that together beautifully. Now, as long as you can get a nailer in from one direction, you should be okay. You see, you'll try to push it in as far as you can and then get in from the front here, but you can also use just a clamp in here to hold that for now. If you can't get your nailer in there. This cabinet's pretty small, so you shouldn't have this problem, but even on our larger ones, we have a little bit of an issue with it. All right. Last piece of panel. Okay, so I want to be clear as to why we did this in the direction that we did and why we left this to the last part, is that this here being beveled, having a mitered cut to it, and then the T-mold and stuff on the back, you can see how it wants to separate and stuff. With the T-mold on the back here, I don't want to put a pin through there if we don't have to for nail. See if I can get better focus. For some reason it's not giving it to me. What's happening there is obviously it just wants to part itself out of the way, but when you have the dado cuts in your other piece, you're going to just put your piece on top of this, right? Like Lego, and you're just going to drop it into place. So you'll put glue into all your channels, all your dados that you've done, okay? And then you're gonna drop it on top of here. Then you're gonna put your weight or your sandbag or your clamps on it, and then you're gonna leave it there for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. And then you're gonna wanna try to flip it over and then put the cleats in there while it's still drying so that you can adjust it and push it into place and do that type of a thing. If you can't do that and you leave it overnight, that's fine. And then do the cleats after. Just don't forget to put the cleats in it, and you'll have to glue them from side to side. Or on either side, sorry, and then put them in. So we also put a cleat in here as well to go all the way up there. Anytime you just have bare wood on your support to bare wood on any sort of angle, we would cut the cleat on that angle and put it in. So I'll video that as well. But for now, that was the way it goes for this technique number 4. We're gonna move on to putting the side on, but it's obviously if you want to see the other side of this, and we're going to be using technique number 2 to do that, which is just wood on wood without the dados to put in and these smaller cleats with nails. So we're going to do that right away.